Thanks for being here. I want to open by thanking Retzlaff for hosting us and having us in their beautiful, beautiful winery today. We couldn't have asked for a more beautiful setting to have this very important conversation. I also want to thank our co-hosts, the Livermore Winegrowers Association and Las Positas College Viticulture and Wine Technology Department for working with us to bring this program to all of you today. This is something we've been talking about for 2 years. It's taken a while for obvious reasons, but we're so happy to be together out in this beautiful space today for this conversation. As many of you know, I became the chair of the Water Parks and Wildlife Committee almost a year ago, and with that work, I've had the opportunity to dive into the conversations of what the current state of California's water is and what our future looks like. And you can add to that my history as an environmental attorney and my love for sustainability and my value that I put onto our local businesses, which is here in Livermore, many of them are our wine growers. And we know that we need to do better in California. As I said to Lynn earlier, we know that we're asking our farmers and our wine growers to make grapes out of nothing right now. We're not providing the water that's needed to really do the work. And so we need to be doing better and focusing on these important issues. And so that's what our conversation is going to focus on today, is how to do the beautiful work that our wineries are doing in a sustainable way and how we can better support our wine growers. So with that, let's not delay it any longer. Let's turn it over to the experts who are here today. And let me introduce who we have. First, we have Allison Jordan, Vice President of Environmental Affairs for the Wine Institute. You have a lot of titles, and the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance. She's been executive director of the Alliance since 2007, responsible for leading the award-winning California Sustainable Wine Growing Program and certified California Sustainable Wine Growing. She helped create the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance, which is a nonprofit organization established by the Institute and promotes sustainability from grape to glass. As I said, she's also the Vice President of Environmental Affairs for the Wine Institute, a department she established in 2007 to address wine industry, environmental, and sustainable issues at local, state, and federal and international levels. She has a Master's of Public Policy from the Goldman School of Public Policy at Berkeley. Go Bears. And we have Rebecca Weber, Policy Director for the California Certified Organic Farmers. Rebecca has worked on the intersection of environmental and agricultural policy for nearly a decade. As the policy director for CCOF, she advocates for organic agriculture as part of the solution to protecting public health, restoring the environment, and growing the economy. She's a former Fulbright fellow from Nepal. What a fun thing to ask her about after. Next, we have Pablo Garza, who I have the privilege of working with as Chief Consultant to the Assembly Committee on Water, Parks, and Wildlife. He focuses on water in the committee. We also have our other principal consultant, Keith, here with us today, if you have any questions for him. Pablo has more than 17 years' experience working in and around the California State Legislature. As I said, he's currently the Chief Consultant, working with me, which might make him crazy most days, but we have fun. He oversees the analysis of legislation in the committee's jurisdiction, works with the committee members and staff to identify relevant policy issues for further investigation and oversight hearing. Prior to becoming chief consultant, he advocated on natural resource and water policy for the Environmental Defense Fund. Pablo is a California native and grew up in Orange County, where they probably could conserve more water. He holds a BA in English from the University of California, Davis, and an MA in Latin American Studies from UCLA. Look at all of that wonderful state education Pablo has. Lastly, we have Victor Frankovic, our consultant with the Assembly Committee on Agriculture. Victor's been a consultant for the Assembly Committee on Agriculture for 13 years. In 2009, he began work for the committee with a focus in ag marketing agreements, citrus, wine, land use, and the Williams Act. In 2017, he became the solo consultant for the Ag Committee. You do all the work. He's been with the legislature for 27 years, not including his 1 year as an intern, so actually 28 years, we should count that, in a variety of roles, many based in agriculture. He has a BA in political science from UC Santa Barbara, and he's been married for 27 years. You could tell us the secret to that too if you have time. Okay, so let's start with Allison. Going down to that end. When we talk about sustainability in winemaking and wine growing, what are we talking about? In California, which wineries are leading examples? Who should we be looking at when it comes to sustainability and clean energy and environmental impact?
Okay, so there's a lot there. Sustainability is really about balancing the environment, social equity, and economic feasibility or viability. And we think about it as making the best grapes, growing the best grapes, and making the best wine possible while conserving natural resources, building healthy soils, protecting air and water quality. So there's lots to it on the environmental side. It's really important to think also about the social equity side, so how you treat your neighbors and employees, and really building those vibrant communities. And then also it has to be economically viable. So really thinking about passing on thriving businesses to future generations. And we have taken a lot of time and care to define it here in California. As you heard, I've been with the California Sustainable Wine Growing Alliance for quite some time. It was founded by Wine Institute and the California Association of Wine Grape Growers. And we built this thing called the California Code of Sustainable Wine Growing that took parts from other regions that were working on sustainability, a whole collection of comprehensive best practices, and then added a third-party certification called Certified California Sustainable Wine Growing in 2010. And it's basically a way to set some required practices, but also making sure that there's continuous improvement. So I could go into the long list of what's required, but it basically is that third-party verification that certain practices are being employed, that you're measuring and managing things like your energy and water use, your greenhouse gas emissions, and then of course you're looking at where your operation has the biggest impact, what you want to prioritize, and you're always improving. So the auditor's verifying all of those things. And we now have over 80% of California wine being made in a certified California sustainable winery, and over half of the acreage in the state is certified sustainable to one of the programs. I mentioned mine, but there's also Napa Green and SIP certified and Lodi Rules. So there's lots of ways that people can get engaged. We're the fourth largest wine growing region in the world, and so I think we can have such a significant impact by embracing this comprehensive set. And in terms of who's doing well, it's really hard for me to pick one child, a favorite child. We're here in Livermore, so of course you're going to hear from Wente a little bit later. But you can also find all kinds of certified sustainable wineries, wines, and vineyards at californiasustainablewine.com. Each year, we also work with all of the other California sustainability programs to identify leaders, and we give out 4 awards annually, and they include the leader, environment, community, and business. And it's a great way to sort of identify who's doing really well. It just so happens that this year in 2022, Wente is the leader in the California Green Medal. So proud to be here with them. And I just wanted to mention a couple of others, some of the work that they're doing on water and energy. So Trefethen Family Vineyards, they have over 2,000 solar panels. They are using EV vehicles, which you'll probably hear a little bit more about, and charging stations. They're doing night harvesting. All of these are ways that both save energy but also reduce greenhouse gas emissions. McManus Family Vineyards, you may know, in Lodi, they're reducing their carbon footprint by using electric UTVs and forklifts, solar. Solar is a big thing in California where the sun shines so much, and also composting, and basically doing lots of things to reduce their footprint. And then finally, I will mention Jackson Family Wines, which was the business leader this year, or business award recipient this year. And they have this roadmap that they're working on, all kinds of goals that they've set. And it really is a way to fully integrate sustainability into their business operations. So far, they've invested over $18 million in their sustainability efforts. And they say it's resulted in over $29 million in cost savings from energy efficiency, renewables, glass bottle lightweighting, and other innovations. So definitely leaders. They also created this International Wineries for Climate Action, Spotswood, and Constellation and Silver Oak are examples of wineries that are part of that. And then the last thing I'll mention is there are a number of wineries that are also setting net zero targets or reducing their emissions by a certain year. So some of those include Treasury and Fetzer, doing some really interesting work on setting targets for renewables and for basically being net zero by 2030. So there you go.
That's amazing. And I don't pick favorite children either, but do get really excited when people give shout outs to my 8016 businesses. So Carl and Nikki Wente are here. We're going to hear from Nikki on the next panel about sustainability. So amazing work locally. And I loved hearing those numbers you gave on the economics of it, that actually it can be a cost savings in the end, which is really important because I know businesses in California right now, the more we can do to try to cut costs to make them more profitable, the better. I have so many questions, but I'm going to hold my questions like I'm asking y'all to do. Okay, Rebecca, we'll go to you. Can you talk to us about what organic farming is in this context, and then talk about the nexus of sustainability and organics?
Absolutely. First, I just want to thank you for inviting CCOF to participate. I want to just give a shout out to this beautiful vineyard that we're sitting in right now. So this is a certified organic vineyard. And again, I'm Rebecca Weber, Policy Director with CCOF, California Certified Organic Farmers. We represent about 4,000 organic farms, ranches, and businesses. And that includes 375 organic vineyards and 90 organic wineries. So what is organic? Organic is really grounded in ecological principles. And what makes organic unique is how heavily regulated it is. So organic is defined in federal law and rules. And all organic operations, whether they're here in California or on the East Coast in Vermont, are all following the same rules. What I want to speak to today is what an organic operation means. And for an organic wine grape grower or an organic winery making organic wine, they all need to follow two sets of requirements. There are many, many requirements, but two that I wanted to focus on that really tie into sustainability. And the first is that the materials that they use are heavily regulated. So synthetics are prohibited. That includes synthetic pesticides, fertilizers, drugs, food processing aids. And the second that I want to speak to is a requirement around natural resource conservation. And the way that these operations are regulated is that they are all certified by an accredited agency. So in our case, it's CCOF. And an inspector will come at least once a year and verify compliance with these requirements. So going back to what substances are prohibited. So synthetics are prohibited. There is a limited exception to this. It is a very limited toolbox that organic grape growers and winemakers can use. For organic grape growers, they have access to about 25 synthetic pesticides out of over 900 for non-organic producers. And in order to use and access this toolbox, they have to first demonstrate that they are employing what we call cultural, biological, and mechanical practices first. So they can't reach for that chemical toolbox before they demonstrate that they are first employing these other more sustainable practices. For organic winemakers, they have access to about 100 food processing aids out of over 3,000 that non-organic winemaker and processors can have access to. So that just goes to demonstrate that it's a very limited toolbox of chemicals that organic producers have access to. On top of that, each of these is reviewed every 5 years for adverse human health and environmental impacts. So it's a continuous improvement process, and everything is under research, and there is a continuous analysis of these limited tools in the toolbox. So those are the materials that are prohibited. Going down to the requirement around conserving natural resources, so we are sitting in an organic vineyard. Organic grape growers, as with all organic producers, need to demonstrate how they are conserving natural resources and biodiversity. They have to actually put into a plan all of the practices that they're using and all of the materials that they're using. And they have to demonstrate what are they doing to improve natural resources. So because they have access to a limited toolbox of chemicals and they have to improve their natural resources, they really have to look towards sustainable practices to build the soil health in order to provide the nutrients for the vine, in order to really control pests, weeds, and disease. So one of the most common practices that we see on organic vineyards is cover crop. Cover crop is a really important tool that provides nutrients, it provides habitat for beneficial insects, and it's a really important practice that many organic producers use. Others, just to mention off a few, and these are what we call the cultural, mechanical, and biological controls, involve grazing sheep and chicken in your vineyard. They include putting up nets to keep birds out, putting up fences to keep deer and rabbits out. They might include mowing, hand weeding. They may include putting up owl boxes or raptor perches, as well as site selection and rootstock selection. So all of these are important practices that organic producers can put into practice. And while not a single practice is necessarily required, all organic producers do have to meet that requirement of conserving natural resources and to demonstrate that to their certifier. And I will stop with that.
Thank you. And as you heard, there'll be an opportunity to walk around the vineyards and see this live and in action. And it was the first time I had the opportunity, here was the first time I had the opportunity to see what it looked like on the ground. And they showed me how I can tell when I show up at a winery whether it is organic or not. So if you want to see that after, join us. Now, Pablo, water. He's so much I harass him. Water access, equity, and sustainability is an issue that concerns wine growers. Can you talk about the state and future of water in California? And as he knows, you all want to sleep at night, so temper it, please.
Yeah, I'll try and avoid the doom and gloom, but thank you for being, thanks for hosting us. I'm happy to be here. It is a beautiful location. I think we all know we're facing really big challenges in the water sector in California. We kicked off the new water year. The water year starts on October 1st, so we just started the new water year, and we're in our fourth year, beginning our fourth year of severe drought across the state. So it's a little scary, and I think what we've realized in the last decade or so is just the wildfires brought it home, but we're seeing also now in the water sector climate change. The climate has changed, and the hydrology we're experiencing is different than what we experienced in the 20th century when a lot of our infrastructure and water sector was put in place. And we have these terms like mega drought, low to no snow future, that have now entered the water policy lexicon. So that is a bit heavy on the doom and gloom. But I think this is in Sacramento. The legislature and the governor are well aware of the problem. They are taking action to address these issues. In this past year, there's some important policy vehicles that move forward on water conservation in an urban setting. Also, how to factor in climate change into looking at water rights, and when we're approving new water rights. And then probably more importantly, they took advantage of this historic budget surplus we've seen the last 2 years to do a large drought package. And this past year, $2.9 billion were approved over the next 4 years to do various things to respond to drought. Some of that's immediate drought support, getting water to communities that need it, some relief for farmers that have had to fallow crops, but also mid to longer term things like investment in infrastructure. We know we need to. In the Central Valley, we have conveyance issues, and so we've lost capacity. So we need to repair that so we can move water around when we have it. And I think, looking ahead, I think this next year we're going to be doing, continuing that drought conversation. I think in the committee, under leadership of my boss, but across the legislature, a lot of people are focused on this. And the governor's put out a plan in August, looking at some ideas that I think there's some good stuff there. You hear the buzzword about reform, and that's not easy, right? I think when we talk about water rights reform, the governor's talking about modernizing water rights, and the legislature took some steps in last year's budget to modernize water rights, and that means digitizing the water right records we have. So we just have better information about what we have out there, and that's one of the big challenges in California is the lack of information. So I think that's easier for us all to agree on. That first we need to know what we have to work with and what we're managing with. Another big piece of this is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, which was passed in 2014. in the midst of the last drought, and kind of just continuing the stay of the course on implementing that and doing a good job of that. That's going to be an important supply of water, and it's better for the more we can bank water in the ground when we have it in the wet years. It gives us some more longevity through these droughts we're seeing. So I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm happy to go into more detail if there's questions, but I don't want to leave. I think I don't despair in California water. I think we have a lot of you can get negative, but I think we have a lot of water in California, right? I think looking ahead, we're going to have a robust agricultural sector. We're going to have vibrant communities. People are going to be able to get the needs they meet. We're going to have the water we need for our industry. I don't think we need to maybe manage it differently or better and think about how the hydrology's changed. But I think we have a bright future here, and I think we're going to be able to continue doing a lot of things we're doing. I got a call. One of the interesting things about working in legislature, sometimes these calls you get from the public, and this guy was asking me last fall about, well, when you have a drought, don't you deploy or allocate water differently? And what he's really talking about is, do we have a water budget? And I was like, well, our water rights system is a little different. Seniority, it's based on priority and kind of the people who've had it, and so the junior water rights. And so I explained some of that to him, but I think I wanted to leave him with, there is a lot of water in this state, and it's not like we need to fallow or we can't take showers, and I think we get kind of a little the rhetoric gets a little crazy. So I think there is a lot of reason for optimism. Hopefully we'll get some rain this year, but it looks like another dry year ahead of us. But I'm confident that we can move forward and do a better job and still have a lot of the things we value in this state. So I'll stop there and answer questions.
I loved the optimism, Pablo. I joke about, what it's like to work with me on this issue, because it really is one of the issues that I think is at the heart of California's success, right? I mean, it is the number one issue on the mind of Californians right now as it relates to climate change is drought, because we know that water is integral to life, sustainability, and our future. We're also the breadbasket for, a huge part of the country, and we've learned, I think, in stark relief right now what it means to have the safety and security of that independence, and that we need to maintain it. But to Pablo's point, he and I have been studying, he longer than me, but there are nations with much less water than the state of California that do much better with it, right? So it's not, although our water future is changing, we will have less, we will still have more than enough as long as we manage it, store it, and allocate it properly. But it's going to take some serious focus on that infrastructure, on what that system looks like, and how we can be better managers of the water system. So I'm not easy on what it looks like to focus on our future of water, but nor should Californians expect us to not pay hard attention to that. Victor. Cost is often a barrier to those who want to make changes to their practices. And I have to give a shout out to your boss, Assemblymember Rivas, who has been actually a leader in helping farmers get grant relief as it relates to water practices in California. Can you talk about what is available in state and federal programs to help wine growers with a transition to more sustainable agricultural practices?
Yes. Well, I'll start with the state level. What is it? California has one of the best programs for climate-smart agriculture. It's relatively well-funded. I know Rebecca and I both would like to see more money into it. But the two big programs that we've been working on a lot in the last couple of years has been SWEEP, which is a state water enhancement program, and Healthy Soils program. Both of those provide competitive grants to do a wide variety of conservation and sustainable practices on farms. They're a good way to segue into being able to go from a traditional to either sustainable or organic farming. But the biggest problem is they're completely over accessed. What is it? I think we have a 2-to-1 ratio right now of people who apply to get the grants. We've asked for more money each year, and our biggest impediment to it is not enough ag members and a lot of urban members who don't see how that affects them. But the programs have been codified in the last couple of years instead of just having been programs, which gave them more flexibility. They used to fall under the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which had a lot more limitations on how they could be used. But we keep plugging away each couple of years to find more money for those. There's also quite a few federal programs that supplies funds for sustainability. There are also competitive grants. And the biggest issue with those is they're nationwide. So you're competing for $20 million going to a wide variety of different states. And that's why we need to try to boost what we're doing here in California more. More recently, one of the more interesting things I've seen in the bill on transition to organics was actually a CCUF bill, 2499 by Manshine, that would have helped with the transition to organics, because it's a 3-year process to move towards organics, where you're doing the organic processes, but you're not being paid for the organic product. The bill would have helped with low income and socially disadvantaged farmers to be able to do a transition and then maybe expand after that. Unfortunately, it died in the Appropriations Committee on the Senate side. So our constant thing is trying to find out where we can find more dollars to be able to go to the programs that work, and then looking for new programs, especially brought up by people who are working in the areas like CCOF and the Wine Institute. We just need to figure out a way to tell the message or give the message and the story to the non-ag areas of what's trying to be done in California.
Well, I have to say, people don't think of me as an ag member, although if you look around, you see that I actually do have ag in my district, but not as much as some of my colleagues. And I carried the first sweeps codification, if you recall, and handed it off to Assemblymember Robert Rivas because I decided he was a better author after it didn't succeed in the Senate the first year. But I do think it is important that we build partnerships with our suburban, urban members to help understand the value of this, because even though they may not have the constituents growing the food, they have the constituents eating the food. So it's critical that we all support our agriculture. And in addition, the cost savings of using these sweeps, is really critical, and it drives the price of our agricultural products down. So, which is a benefit to all Californians. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And to your point, more resources would be better. So not enough goes into the water space, if you ask me, but I may be biased. Okay, we have time for questions. Who's got a question? I do, but I'm happy to share it with y'all. Okay, you want me to ask the questions? Great. So one of the things that I think I'm hearing, and I sort of touched on, was this economics piece, right? I mean, wine growers are business people, right? They're trying to make a successful business in a state that, costs are high. So can we dive a little bit deeper, and we'll hear from our wine growers and they can touch on this as well in the next panel. But, obviously the state help is critical, right? Because if you get this grant, then the cost isn't entirely on you to do some of this transition work. And I'll say that one of the other amazing things that these programs provide is the educational support. So UC Davis, for example, is a great partner in helping our agricultural growers learn how to do this and get access to it, especially our smaller growers. But, can you talk about what are the economics? How can we be more supportive? I don't know who wants to take this, but it is, as people think about going organic, you talk about hand picking, right? When you said hand picking, I thought, oh goodness, right? That's probably more expensive than traditional means. So do you want to start?
Sure. Am I still on? Yes. So absolutely. I mean, when we're talking about sustainability, and I appreciated Allison pointing out, it's the economics in addition to the environmental, as well as the social. And something, farmers want to access organic because of the price premium associated with organic. There are, more opportunities with organic in the market. That being said, and that's one reason why producers are pursuing going organic. There are, labor costs associated with going organic, and that's really why that transition period that Victor talked about, it's the first 3 years where you're not able to access that market, you're not able to access that price premium during those first 3 years. So that's really when a producer is most vulnerable, and that's really when we look at state and federal support during that time. After which, I think it's important to note that the environmental practices, they support your bottom line over time. If you're investing in having healthy soils, you're investing in your yields. If you're investing in healthy soils, you are investing in not needing to apply expensive chemical solutions. And so really the environmental piece over time is an economic solution as well. And so I think that's really important to point out. And really it's that first 3 years, that's a critical period of time. And, water and labor, which are generally concerns within California and, need to be addressed. But it is helpful to have that price premium associated with organic that supports the bottom line as well.
So for sustainability, I always think of it as really a lens through which you're making decisions and weighing trade-offs. And so I hear a lot of wineries that have decided to embrace sustainability talk about ways that they can basically be more efficient, so reduce their energy and water use, save money, and that gives them money to invest into other things that maybe would take more time. But there's no doubt that incentives and grants that help with education and tools and resources that come from both federal and state are really, really important. In the market side, we have done some research that shows there is a willingness to pay more, but we're not seeing it in the same way that, especially for fresh produce on organic. Wine's just a little bit different that way, but we are seeing that it's in some cases about market entry and market differentiation. And so in our program, we started off just being a vineyard or winery certification, but we kept hearing from retailers and other people in the trade that they wanted to see something on the label akin to organic or biodynamic. And so we were basically looked at our program in 2017 so that we could allow a wine label, a logo on wine labels that signifies that both the winery and the grapes are certified. And I'm noticing there's a lot of uptake of that, especially some wineries will start with one brand and then they'll just keep adding brands. So I'm seeing that as a sign that it's doing something positive for them economically as well.
Interesting. And I know, and hopefully Nikki will touch on this when she speaks, but I know that Wendy has been piloting some of our electric tractors that are being built right here in Livermore, and that's both, clean energy, but also I think helping with some of the labor shortages we see in California. So, there's opportunities for both of those things to happen simultaneously. And then let's talk about the environmental benefit. So, this year I carried a piece of legislation that would have banned the use of neonicotinoids in home and recreational use because we know the negative impact it's having on our bee population, and we need bees to pollinate flowers, to grow food. The bill was vetoed, but we'll be back. But biodiversity is a real issue here in California and across the world. Can you talk a little bit about the benefits? I guess we'll start with the organic question. And Victor, if you want to chime in as well from the agricultural perspective on, how do we boost our biodiversity as climate change is really putting a challenge on that?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, biodiversity is at the core of organic. That is something that organic farmers, producers are required to pay attention to. And that's, again, it's going back to thinking about your vineyard as an ecosystem. It's thinking about, having healthy soils. It's thinking about having, oftentimes planting perennials, flowering perennials. It's thinking about what your approach to managing pests, weeds, and disease is, so that you're thinking about your biodiversity throughout the entire process. And so it's really a mind shift in thinking about your vineyard as a whole ecosystem. And because, it's a core tenet of organic, we're seeing, it's important to note that all of these pieces are interconnected. So when you're thinking about your biodiversity, you're also thinking about your bottom line, because the more you're able to have beneficial insects, that is, an important piece of dealing with pesticide, pressure. So it's something that I'll let Aaron speak to a little bit more when he's up here next, hearing directly from an organic producer. but it's something that organic producers take very seriously. And again, it connects back to that economic piece as well. I did want to just point out, really appreciated Victor and pointing out the bill that we had run. We are seeing that there is a state investment in an organic transition program. There's $5 million that was put in to the budget for this upcoming year. CDFA, the Department of Food and Ag, is building out a program. So there is state support for transitioning to organic. And at the federal level, USDA just invested $300 million in organic transition. So there's more support than ever before for organic transition. If you want to hear more about it, feel free to talk to me offline.
Awesome. And I was just told by my staff that Monarch is here, so if anybody wants to learn more from them. And Victor, anything to add on sort of the value of biodiversity to our agricultural producers?
I'm not sure about that, but I do have something on just change as we go through, because nobody likes change. Nobody likes changing things the way they used to do things. But California used to be the number one wheat producer in America up until the early 1900s. Our dairies, didn't produce the most cheese and milk, up until the 1980s. We've moved from 1 million acres of cotton in this state to less than 100,000 and have shifted over to almonds and wine grapes and more profitable crops. So as things change due to the environmental issues and climate change, hopefully our transition will be somewhat as smooth as it was previously. But we also have a lot of the universities working on a wide variety of different crops. I know that UC Davis and Chico are working on varieties of water-resistant and drought-resistant plants in the strawberry area and other areas too. And there may be a time, we're having a discussion about this earlier today, about countries that have large amounts of greenhouses, of having to move towards greenhouse structures for things that less pesticide, less water, and you can have a crop year-round. So there's a lot of transitions that may come. We just need to make sure that it's affordable and that we can help as a state as our farmers move through these transitions.
Awesome. Okay, one last question. I'm getting the warning that we should move on in a minute to our second panel, but Pablo. So if you had a magic wand, which we know Sacramento doesn't work with magic wands, but let's just pretend, and could do one thing to help the water situation for California's growers, what would it be?
I'd make it rain.
I guess I gave you a magic wand, so that's
give
fair.
Me a magic wand, yeah. More seriously, I think it's a tough question. I mean, there's a lot of perspectives in the legislature on water and around the state, right? And it's kind of depends on where you are, what you're doing. But I think some changes are going to have to be made. They're going to be forced upon us. We're already seeing that. The snowpack issue is really kind of frightening when we're saying when we get past 2050 and beyond, we're just going to have snow droughts, and snow might disappear in the Sierra. So it's just thinking about that. That's our largest reservoir of water, so we're going to have to change how we manage water. For now, I think I'd be happy with better information as a good start. And there's been a lot of effort on this. You say you can't manage what you don't measure, and I think we haven't done a good job of that. We don't really know the amount of water that we've issued water rights to. We haven't until recently begun trying to look at groundwater, factor groundwater into the picture, and they're connected. So I think if we can continue to make steps on, metering, measuring, and quantifying the water rights that are out there, at least we know what we're working with, and then we can hopefully start to build some consensus about a path forward. So I think that's, that's the governors, put that out there. The legislature's put funding towards that. So I think we're already down that road. And I think another piece of that is just better forecasting. This forecast-informed reservoir opera is kind of nerdy and wonky, but we need better information so we can manage better. And then I think hopefully it'll drive to some consensus around it, because these are not easy issues. Senior water right holders don't want to be bothered. But if you look at the Colorado River, it's at a crisis point. And I think we'll see what happens. But California is probably going to give up some of that water that we have the largest right, the Colorado River water, and we're going to have to give some up. It's going to put more pressure on the rest of the state. So anyway, better information first, and then we'll talk about the harder stuff.
Okay, thank you for that. And so I want to thank all of you for your expertise, for being here, for everything you do every day to move us forward. I know I loved that we're closing on better information to make better policy, because I think it is the heart of what we should be doing. And I know we have former and current national lab folks here that I see, and it really is our scientists who are helping us figure that out and drive the direction that California should be going. And so it's really critical. So thank you guys. Appreciate all of you. And I know that if you were all too shy to ask your questions, then they can all be reached by email if you have any further questions, or I'm sure they would welcome you coming up to them after. So thanks, guys. We're going to move on to our next panel. So if you're on our next panel, come up and join me on the hot seat. And with the break, I do want to give a huge shout out to some of our local electeds that are here, because I know every day they support these incredible wine growers. And we have a few of our local electeds here from the Tri-Valley. Mayor Brown from Pleasanton, thank you for being here. We have both Bob Carling and I thought I saw Trish Monroe walk in. There she is from Livermore. Sherry Hu from Dublin is here. And Christy Wang, one of our local educators here in Livermore. So thanks everyone for being here and for everything you do for our businesses. Oh wait, do we have one last person? Should I move over? I don't want to sit so far away from you guys. I feel sad. I'll move. You stay. Oh, am I getting? Oh, you'll take that one. I'll keep this one. Okay, so now for our second panel, which I'm really, really excited about, to talk about what's happening locally. I'll introduce, and they are in the right order. This is very impressive, both times. First, we have Valerie Pryor, who serves as General Manager of the Zone 7 Water Agency. She has nearly 20 years experience in water resource management and 30 years of experience in public administration. She has a master's degree in urban planning from UCLA. So really, today is an advertisement of what can happen if you get a great UC education. Nikki Wente is a fifth-generation wine grower at our local Wente family estates. She works as Director of Vineyard Operations. In her role, Nikki oversees farming operations for roughly 3,000 acres of certified sustainable vineyards in the Livermore Valley and Arroyo Seco, Monterey. Wente Family Estates is the oldest continuously operated family-owned winery in the United States. I didn't know it was the United States. It's impressive. Operating sustainably since 1883. Aaron Taylor is the head of operations here at Retzlaff Winery. Aaron is almost a local native, having grown up in Livermore since the age of 3. So just those first 3 years, we'll forgive you. During the 1970s, his family moved from downtown Livermore out to the country to a dilapidated old ranch property known as Retzlaff Vineyards and Estate Winery. After being actively involved in the restoration of the property and establishment of the vineyard, Aaron went on to pursue a career in mechanical design with a degree from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. More recently, Aaron and his wife Salame returned to do work with the family full-time on the farm after the death of your mother in 2009. He's currently in charge of operations at Retzlaff Vineyards, where, among other things, he oversees the health and well-being of one of only a few CCOF-certified organic vineyards in the entire San Francisco Bay Viticulture area. Aaron's ambition is to encourage other local grape growers to better understand the advantages of adopting sustainable organic farming practices, both from the perspective of producing high-quality wines and for the benefit of our neighbors and greater communities. And I would add, our bees and bugs and animals as well. So welcome, and thank you for being on this panel so we can hear from our local community on this really, really important issue. I understand there are local nuances. We heard the state lens, but it can't fully capture why what we're talking about is so important today. So we're going to start with you, Nikki. Wente is the only Livermore winery that is certified as sustainable. Tell us what that means, why you did it, and how it's going.
Yes, so I actually think that in the Livermore Valley, there's at least one more that I know of. I know Ruby Hill Winery, I believe, is certified sustainable as well. But for us, it was really important because we, as Allison said earlier, we really value the 3 pillars of sustainability that sustainable wine growing encompasses, which is that environmental sustainability, that social equity, and the financial responsibility of keeping our business in operation for future generations. I mean, I'm a 5th generation wine grower, so it was really important to my parents and their parents before them to be able to have a sustainable business operation for future generations. And it's not just for our children, it's also for the employee population that we have grown over the 139 years, as well as all of the neighbors around us and the community that we support through jobs, through donations, through everything that we do to really engage with our area. So I think it's not just about the environmental piece, which is a huge piece, of course, but it is also about, how can we support our employee population and our community, which is really important to us. My great-grandfather always used to say, if you take care of the soil, it takes care of you. And so I think that we've always had a farming first mentality, and sustainability just really made sense for us as a business decision. And we're always happy to talk to other wineries, other growers about what it takes to be sustainable, and how we got to where we are. So happy to be a partner there.
Awesome. Is there organized ways for wineries to connect and learn from each other?
Yes, there's a lot of different ways to connect. I mean, the Livermore Winegrowers Association, for one, is a huge way to connect, but we also have the Wine Quality Alliance, which is another way for people to connect over how to improve quality through and through. I gave a talk about sustainable vineyard practices for the Wine Quality Alliance. And, just in general, it's a small community in the Livermore Valley, so it's easy to connect, easy to get in touch with people, and I think most of our wineries are happy to engage, on these topics.
I love that. Well, and it's so, Wente and some of the other wineries here in the Valley are such good citizens and community members, and they really do support education and things, across the spectrum, and, being sustainable and helping, the local climate is obviously an important piece of that. So thank you. Aaron, let's talk about organics. So and correct me if I'm wrong, as Nikki did, but I understand you're the only organic wine grower in the Livermore Valley. Is that right? Did I get that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So tell us about that. Why is it important to you? Why is it important to the community? Is it really, really hard? Tell me.
Well, I guess it's fair to say it was a bit of an evolutionary process. We've been growing grapes here now for about 43 years. Back in the early days, my father being a PhD chemist here from the lab, a geochemist, and growing up very interested in the outdoors and seeing the effects of chemicals such as DDT and so forth back in those days. When he started the vineyard, clear back in the 70s, he was pretty well aware of the effects of harmful chemicals on the environment, and did his best to not use them in our field. The very first grapes planted here were thanks to the Wente family, who worked with us closely to plant the 12 acres of gray Riesling grapes. Eventually, those market died out for those varietals, and in the late 70s, we grafted over to the same grapes we're growing today, which are Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon, and Merlot, a little bit of Semillon. Our first production back in the late 80s for our red varietals, the Cabernet won a double gold medal at the state fair. So we were very proud of that, and that basically put us on the map. So again, my father eschewed the use of harmful chemicals even way back in the early days, and when it became more advantageous, I guess, to become officially organically certified, we are, I believe, among some of the oldest certified organic vineyards in the state. Back in 2006, we got the official certification. But because there was no agriculture on this property prior to us planting the grapes, it was a range land sheep farm. The transition to organic, from as far as official certification was concerned, was actually quite easy. We touched earlier a little bit on some of the economic benefits of being organic. There are some issues, of course, with additional labor costs and different processes. But overall, I think it's fair to say that we have done well and can really thank our loyal customers and the public and you folks. Thanks again for coming to spread the word about the advantages of being organic. And so we have customers who come and specifically look to us and to support us and appreciate really what we do. But as far as, why actually my father did it way back in the day, it's a good question, and I asked him last week that exact question. And his response after quite a bit of thought was, honestly, to preserve and sustain the land for future generations. And that's really what it boils down to. There's a lot of day-to-day issues that we go through to sustain it. I'm happy to talk to people afterwards in more detail about specifically, how we do it. But to preserve the land for the benefit of everyone, for our neighbors, for our environment, for the water beneath the soil, it's all part of a big package that's important to, it's where we live. And honestly, we're honored and proud to be able to be part of that community, and we hope that we can spread the word and see it become more adopted around the world, really. Very important.
I love that. And it sort of highlights, right, we only have one planet, right? We don't get a second chance.
Yep.
So, but I'm going to take home Nikki's quote of this: if you take care of the soil takes care of you. I think it's just, I don't know, it hits home sort of what it means to take care of the environment around us.
Yeah, and one other comment too, I suppose, relative specifically to winemaking and grape growing. We've had very knowledgeable wine people come through the property over the years, and without question, the common comment from them is that in general, and especially in relationship to our grapes, that organically grown grapes exhibit more pure and unadulterated flavor profiles and a unique freshness, which is essential to, well, our style of winemaking in particular. So ultimately, it's got that advantage, of course.
Yeah, I'm glad you have the tasting room open so we can check that out. So, Valerie, obviously wine growing and winemaking relies on water. It's critical to the process. Can you talk a little bit about the regional efforts here to ensure enough water for the important agriculture that's happening in this community?
Yes, thank you for asking. And I think probably most of this audience knows, but Zone 7, we're the regional water supplier, and we provide water directly to the agricultural customers here in Livermore. And we are a state water project contractor, so the state water project takes water from the Feather River, it comes through the Sacramento River, it comes through the Delta, and it comes here to Zone 7. Due to a changing regulatory environment, but largely climate change, that source of supply is less reliable than it used to be and will continue to be less reliable. So at Zone 7, we are engaging in a number of regional and statewide projects for water supply and water supply reliability. And I think with climate change in the water world, we have a new elevator speech about how we're going to get out of this, and it's to move and store water in wet times, to use in dry times. And our suite of projects reflects all of that. So we're looking at some new supply, some new storage, and some new conveyance. So not in any particular order, because the Zone 7 Water Agency is looking at all of them right now, but the Los Vaqueros Reservoir expansion, which is just north of here, and we'd be able to store water. And also there's a conveyance, a piece of that, the Transfer Bethany pipeline. So we could store some of our wet weather water in Los Vaqueros and then be able to convey it through the Transfer Bethany pipeline during dry times. Sites Reservoir is a potential new reservoir about 2 hours north of Sacramento. It would take water that's currently not stored or used anywhere during wet periods, and then we would have that to access during dry periods. The Delta Conveyance Project is part of the State Water Project, and that again would be a conveyance project, so take high flow events and be able to move that water probably in some for use and some in storage, and then also use that during dry times. And then more in the conceptual planning stages, we are looking at a potential brackish desalination project, kind of in the Antioch area, and then also potable reuse, which would be looking at highly treated wastewater that we could store in our groundwater basin that would eventually become water supply. None of these are Zone 7 alone projects. Partnerships is key, so Delta Conveyance and Sites, those are statewide projects. You have Northern California, Bay Area, Central Valley, and Southern California participants. The Los Vaqueros Reservoir expansion is a Bay Area project. And then potable reuse would be regional within the Tri-Valley area with the local retailers and cities. And then the brackish desal potential project, that would be with some Bay Area water agencies.
And I love that, because I think that you just highlighted what I think is the most critical approach to water, which is really an all of the above approach, right? You didn't leave anything out, I don't think, in the ways to capture, store, and create more water opportunities. And a huge shout out to Zone 7 on leading on that Los Vaqueros JPA. I think that that's really important work, and the agencies coming together to do that work is really going to be critical to its success. So thank you for that. And it was funny when I asked Pablo that question about, you know, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And I think one of my answers would be I would have potable recycling water all over the state today. And that's, you know, I think it is one of the most critical things we can do. And those projects are expensive and they're going to take a while. And if we had them today, we would be in a much, much better position moving forward. So thank you for looking at it moving forward. I was actually out at the Antioch desalination plant that they're building just recently, and I think brackish water desalination is something that not everyone understands, but actually shout out to Lawrence Livermore Lab, who has been really at the forefront of some of the technology that we're using to get energy use down in desalination. Those are the kind of steps forward we need to be able to make it more successful and sustainable in California and around the world, not just here in California, but we'll take advantage of our own science. But it's really exciting looking at that, and we've had more saltwater intrusion, as you know, Valerie and others know, into the Delta. And how do we take water that used to be come out of the Delta and be drinking water that now is, you know, has more salination in it and make it usable again? And it's an exciting project, and I think the more that we can investigate those and build them, the better off we are. And I know the governor was out there earlier this year talking about the value of it. It happened to be the same day that my desalination bill was killed in the legislature. Things don't always line up, but we will continue to make sure that we're supporting those efforts. So thank you. Okay, let's see if we have more questions for these folks. Oh, good. Mayor Brown.
But my second comment, I just came from an event down at Monterey, and they're using purple pipes, so partially processed wastewater for irrigation. And I actually support that strongly. The Tri-Valley, City of Pleasanton, City of Livermore are using wastewater for irrigation on grasses and parks. But what about for farming?
Interesting. Let me repeat that because she didn't have a mic, so I don't know if everyone heard it. But first, I'm going to give a shout out to Mayor Brown, who has really been leading in cleaning up our groundwater and our wells here in the Pleasanton area. It's been a hard issue to solve, but she has been dogged in her fight, and it really is critical to the sustainability of our water here in the Tri-Valley. So thank you, Mayor, for your leadership. But she asked about purple water pipes, and she said, you know, we're using them for grass and other recreational use, but is it possible to do that for farming? And I'll turn that over. I don't know who wants to answer that.
I mean, can you guys hear me? Yeah. Yes. Okay. So it's hard to say without testing the water and knowing what the water sample would come back as. But if I assume if we're pulling off of the canal almost entirely in Livermore, and that's untreated water. So I would assume that if the water results are somewhere near what we're getting off of the canal, it would be okay. If you're irrigating parks and not having issues with the grass growing, it's likely okay, and would be something that we definitely could look into. If not, it could be something where we are settling in a reservoir and then trying to clean and put out into the vineyard. We have a waste reclamation pond at our winery in both Livermore and in our winery in Monterey. for our winery wastewater, where we let the salt settle and then can repurpose that water. So there's definitely a chance. It's just hard without knowing what's in the water to be able to say for certain.
Valerie, you want to chime in on purple pipes?
For agriculture, I'm probably the least likely here to be able to answer it, but I have heard that it may be slightly salty for some agricultural uses. So I think it would depend on the exact composition.
Do you want to explain purple? I don't know if everyone here knows what the purple pipes are. Do you want to start there?
Okay. Purple pipes are recycled water, and it's recycled water that's used for irrigation, like HOA, front lawns, medians, parks, sports fields, and it's purple pipe because it is a totally separate piping system from your, the water that goes to your home or business. So that is wastewater that is, treated to, it is a safe level. One could technically drink it, but it is in purple pipes, so it gets used for, lawn watering, sports field watering. I do have to say in the Tri-Valley, Zone 7 does not do recycled water. The retail agencies do, and they've done a great job of it. There's quite a bit of recycled water in the community, and so much so that one retailer in particular, the Dublin San Ramon Services District, during the summer, every drop of wastewater is recycled and used. So in this particular community, we've done a good job. And when we talk about potable reuse, it's just for like that last increment of wastewater that's not used as recycled water, typically in winter.
Nice. Okay. Well, I see our former mayor, Marchand from Livermore, has a question. You want to go?
Actually, in the 90s, Augie Hageman was using recycled wastewater quite successfully for some of his farming. Melons, squash, and those sorts of things. They had to be more saline tolerant, but he was using it. There was some, quote, yuck factor with the idea of using it for vineyards, but he was using it quite successfully in the 90s.
Interesting. So it's been done, but maybe on different products is what we're hearing.
They're doing it right now in Monterey.
Okay.
Just went on a tour. They're doing it in Monterey, but to your point, it depends on the product. Melons, grapes, whatever.
We need to get rid of the yuck factor, though. I mean, there are other countries where people are drinking recycled water. So come on, guys. Showers to flowers. I love it. Yes, please.
The vineyard at Las Positas College has been using purple pipe tertiary treated water for 13 years. I'd be happy to put up the fruit and for analysis, be happy to put up the plants for analysis, and I know that the resulting wines have been all great. The parameters at harvest have all been in line with pH, TA, and the only trouble that we have ever had is during the height of the worst drought that we had the last 10 years is the saline was a little bit more prevalent in the water, as it is in some of the local wells during the height of the droughts. So it was a little tough. At that time, the canopies were really small. They didn't really develop. The saline non-tolerant trees and such around the college were dying, but the vineyards are doing fine, and I'm surprised there's not more push for tertiary treated water in viticulture.
Interesting. So for those that couldn't hear, Las Positas is doing it and has been doing it successfully. 13 years, is that what you said? 13 years. So interesting. So much to learn. So much to share. And I will add, shout out to Las Positas. I know we have some budding wine growers here, and Las Positas has an incredible program that I've had the opportunity to visit to really teach people the ins and outs of what that looks like. So for anyone looking, yes. Councilmember Monroe.
I have two questions. First of all, I'm not sure I understand the difference between organic and sustainable.
Okay.
Could explain that. But the second question has to do with it's the analogy to cigarette smoke, where you can say you have this area that is smoke-free and this area isn't, but actually things mix. So in making things organic, in making an organic
Interesting. Aaron, you want to take difference between sustainability and organics?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. And Rebecca with CCOF, wherever you are, you can maybe fill in some of the gaps. I think the biggest difference from my perspective is the toolbox that Rebecca was referring to in terms of which compounds we can use for pest control and weed control and so on. Our toolbox is, like Rebecca mentioned, quite a bit smaller and has been tested and improved over extended time frames to ensure its safety in the environment. And I'll let Nikki talk maybe more to what the exact sustainability requirements may be for these types of inputs in the field. I know that they have recommended practices. I'm not sure personally, and it's perhaps heading more towards more stringent types of requirements like we find in the organic certification field, but there is a gap there. And I think that the two areas of sustainable agriculture are kind of coming closer together and understanding that it really makes sense all around. In terms of the cigarette smoke analogy, we are the only organic vineyard in the greater area here. CCUF does have requirements that we can't be too close to a non-organic certified farm. Rebecca, do you recall what the distance is? There's some requirements.
You can come up if you want, Rebecca. Oh, he's handing you a mic. I was going to give you mine.
Sure. So, as Aaron said, in order to be certified organic, there is a requirement that you keep your distance, from drift from non-organic.
You're supposed to speak. Or maybe here.
Oh, okay, there we go. Learning something new every day. So there are requirements. There isn't a specific buffer length that is set in statute, in law, in regulation. CCUF, we look at 25-foot buffers as a standard. But again, it is site-specific, and it depends on what the distance is from the nearest neighbor. There can be also postings that are required, or one way of asserting sort of that difference, that separation as well. You can, ask your neighbor to post, when they're spraying non-organic approved materials. So there's different avenues, but there is a requirement to keep that separation.
And I think I won't get into it because it would bore all of you. But and Victor can talk more about this if anyone's curious, I'm sure. But there is, the ag commissioners, and there is, a lot that goes into spraying and winds, and all of that is reported out. So there are ways in which the state is heavily regulating that. But obviously, wins are wins. Nikki, anything to add on sustainability? And
Yeah. So for the difference between sustainability and organic, just from the sustainability standpoint, I think that the intent in organic and sustainability with, making sure that you're not only taking care of your soils, but also taking care of your neighbors and your employees, and it's all there, but it's not actually a part of the certification itself. So when you're being certified sustainable, your chemical list is limited. You have red list chemicals, yellow list chemicals, and then green chemicals, like chemicals that you can use. And so we have our list of chemicals that we can use is limited. It's not as limited as organics. They don't need to be classified as an organic product to be used in our vineyards, but it is certainly limited. And organic chemicals are typically also allowed in sustainable practices as well. But then we also are judged on the social equity as well as not judged, that's not the right word. We are scored on our social equity as well as our fiscal responsibility when we're filling out our sustainable audit. So there's that. And I think just overall, both programs are really great. They're just different. I think being organic and sustainable would be a great goal to really showcase that you're taking care of the environment as well as taking care of your communities.
Yes, please, Aaron.
Or just real quick, I might add that quite a few years ago, in the early 2000s, there was a sustainability push, which has continued to this day, in fact. And we were certified sustainable back in those days, and have been following the rules as they were back at that time. But I'm actually personally looking forward to learning more about how Wente does it and what's involved in the, quote, modern certification process, because that is our goal. And I'm fairly certain most of the, if not all the processes we follow here would allow us to be certified quite readily. So that's on our list of things to do.
The to-do list. Mine is long. I'm sure yours is as well. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for sharing your expertise and knowledge. It's, this is an incredible community that, we continue to be so excited to see thrive and support. And I think there is so much to learn every day about what you're doing, how we can support you, and how more people can adopt some of these practices that are taking care of the soil so it takes care of us. I'm taking that home, guys. But really, I want to just thank everyone for being here and engaging. And Aaron, I think, is going to end with what's next. But before I do that, I want to give a huge shout out to the incredible staff in my office, who you all had the privilege of seeing. Elisa, Marilyn, Kathy, and Katie, who put on this incredible event and do so much of the work every day to support the community. So thank you all for everything you do. Yeah, give them a round of applause. They deserve it. We are here. We are here to provide these type of opportunities for learning and engagement, to support any constituents who need us with any state agencies, or if you just want to call Pablo and talk to him about water and how it's managed, as you heard, you can do that as well. But we just love engaging with this incredible community. So thank you all for being here and having us and sharing the wealth of knowledge you have. And I'll turn it over to Aaron.
Thank you so much. Let's see. First of all, again, thank you everybody for coming and being part of this next step, actually, for the Valley and for the greater area. I really think that we can, as a community, really make things happen in this field. I encourage all of you to please stick around if you'd like to learn more about specifically how we farm organically. So if there are any other growers or just interested people, please stick around. But on top of that, please grab one of my cards at the desk up there. And if you'd like to be part of hopefully a growing community of concerned people who are interested in getting certified, we could perhaps all work together, share ideas, and look to get some more certified organizations here in the Valley and beyond.
And are the bands back? Should they come? Usually there are bands on this stage, which I'm not going to tell you that we're probably not as fun as the bands, but. Yeah.
It's a tough act to follow. We've got some great music here on Sundays, so hopefully you guys will come back and try some wine and join us on Sundays. For music. My wife Salome will welcome you over there for a glass of wine if you're interested, and our wonderful staff as well. And again, thanks everyone for coming and being part of this. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.